Welcome back to another Mads Cave video. I'm Sunny, and today we're going to be restoring a ShopFox W1702 shaper that I picked up off of Craigslist. Now, if you are new to this channel or just visiting, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. So this, folks, is a ShopFox W1702 shaper. It is a 3 horsepower, 220 volt heavy duty machine. This thing is really heavy. The top was a mess. The paint was chipping. The fences were done. I believe this was off a cabinet shop that was closing down, and he wanted to get rid of his machine. So luckily I found the ad and had it delivered for $250. So I felt like this is a $1,200 machine, brand new. So, you know, with a little TLC, there was definitely some potential there. The first thing I wanted to do was clean up the fence. They were really stained up, and I noticed the cabinet maker actually cut off a part of one, as you could see on the bottom one. He cut off left of it because I thought he must have thought it was going to hit his shaper bit. So I don't know what he was thinking with that, but I tried a really fine grit because I really wanted to keep the smoothness, and that just wasn't getting off these rust stains. So I definitely shifted to a stronger grit, as you noticed in the video. And this is, like I said, this is usually one of the first things I do, is start taking off the pieces that I can and clean them up and put them aside while I do the rest of the restoration. The next thing you're going to notice is I did take a little scraper or chisel tool to clean out the grooves that were for the screws that hold the fence together with the actual machine. And like I said, I tried using a file and it just wasn't getting off, so I had to chip off all that rust. And I don't know what the condition that this guy actually had it in or where he kept it, but the rust stains seemed pretty deep in these pieces, so I definitely had to resort to a little more harsh tactics to get the stains out. But this technique actually worked really well. It definitely got off all the rust, and it's not absolutely important to keep the smoothness inside those screw holes, so it worked out nice. And now that I put aside the the fence pieces, I started cleaning up the top. And I usually start with a lower grit, like 60 or 80, then work my way up and smooth it down to polish it eventually. So as you can see, the rust was pretty bad, and it took a while definitely to sand this. I was going through a lot of sandpaper as I was going through this process, and my hand was definitely getting tired, wrist was getting tired, but it was a fun process, especially with this one. And a lot of times with the rust, you want to use like a rust dissolver or like any sort of cleaner you can to at least loosen up the rust, in which I did try and it wasn't working, so I just had to resort to straight sanding on this one. And here I wanted to show you guys a little tip I used. I used a die grinder for the rough rust spots that just aren't coming off with the sander. I do start with a very fine grit, just enough to get off the rust, and you obviously want to be careful because you can scratch up the metal and definitely do some damage if you use a really harsh grit. So like I said, it is a testing phase where you're just trying to do enough just to get off the rust stain, and it is very useful for getting off these weird shaped parts of the tool or getting in these spots that the sander just won't get into. It does, like I said, it does take it off pretty fast. So if you are going to use this method or use a grinder of some sort, just be really careful because you can scratch up the metal part or any part of the tool when doing this. And another thing to take note is after I do use this right angle grinder, I will go over it with some sandpaper and definitely polish it out once a little towards the later of the steps. But this is, like I said, this is just to get off these really rough stains that weren't coming off with sandpaper, rust dissolver, or anything else. I do try to avoid it for the most part, but sometimes you just got to do it. And then this, once the rust, like I said, once the rust is broken up, I'll shift to a sander just to smooth it down, get it ready for polishing or painting. Here I am actually just cleaning up a lot of the chips and the weird nooks and crannies of the tool. This part usually is one of the more longer parts of the restoration, just really getting it ready for paint and prep. And here I am going over the sanding that one specific spot I was telling you about that I used the right angle grinder on. You do obviously want to work your way through the grits and not go too harsh initially. Like I said, with my process, I do try to knock out piece by piece and do what I can, and then obviously I'll take breaks because this definitely does take a lot of time and really puts a strain on your hand or arm. So just when you are factoring that in, which is why the video recording this was a little odd, because I would step away, come back, go to it and make sure I have to make sure my camera was on, which you'll see I will miss a few steps recording, but definitely go through the process. And after I was done obviously cleaning up the fence system and that side of the table, like I said, I sanded it down with the harsh grit and worked my way up, cleaned up as much as I can with the right angle grinder, and moved on to the next step. And here I'm going to start sanding the second half of the top. Another cool little tool you can use is the Milwaukee multi-tool, or actually any multi-tool with the sanding feature or sanding attachment, because it does let you get into those corners with the triangle. Or you can use a detail sander or mouse sander, as some people call it. But here you're going to see me kind of go through the process of sanding with the top. And here's how it looks after I did my first set of sanding. Like I said, I touched up some of the paint on the top. I did get a paint color match from Home Depot, and it was pretty close for the most part. And here's some of the stickers that the contractor did leave on. And I obviously want to get those cleaned up before I do sell it, just because it does help with appearance. And the sides I did sand. I'll use a scraper just to get off some of the paint chips before sanding, because it does eliminate a lot of the sanding if you just run a scraper through and just scrape off these loose paint chips before you sand it. It will save you some time. And again, I do need to apologize because a lot of steps you will see missed, like when I painted the top fence feature. That's because I'm running back and forth or attacking the tool later on, and I missed recording because I do forget to press record on the camera. And then I will polish the top towards the end once I am done with the sanding. You don't want to do this obviously during the sanding process, otherwise it will make a mess at the top. So make sure you do this last and get it ready for selling. And here is the shaper once it was ready to sell. Obviously I know there's a lot of stuff that can be worked on more, but I did feel like I got it in better working condition for somebody to actually use, and it was a fun project to do. There are sorts of these deals on Craigslist and OfferUp if you can find them. And it was a fun project. I would say try to go over the steps, what needs to be done when you do this. I did paint the sides, polish the top, clean up the fences, and a little bit for the final thoughts. Again, this is how I used to fund a lot of my projects, and it is fun to do on the weekends because there are a lot of junk tools people are throwing away that just need a little bit of TLC, and you do learn a lot in the process about the tool specifically and a lot of the techniques. So check out OfferUp, check out Craigslist if you can. There are plenty of good deals and good deals to make money on. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was a fun process. If I haven't said that before, please check out my other videos. And you guys know the drill. Go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe.